My name's Zach Price. I'm the digital director for Accountable Tech. I want to say I'm so grateful for everyone coming out today for our rally to protect kids online. Many of us, everyone here in this crowd, a lot of folks are probably coming from the hearing where we just heard from big tech CEOs a lot of the same of what we've heard from them in the past: distraction, deflection, and denial. We're here today to fight for change, to fight for a better future, for a digital world we all deserve. And I think this crowd is a testament to the fact that we're coming to this issue area, to this challenge from so many different perspectives, but united, I think, in that shared cause. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the parents who are here with us today, the parents who have lost children to the harms of social media. I'm grateful for the work of Parents Together, Fair Play for Kids, Parents SOS, many others, for their courage and bravery to be with us today, and you'll be hearing from some of them. I want to thank the young people, the kids and teens of Design It For Us, the Young People's Alliance, and other organizations for being here today as well to speak to how young people today continue to suffer and face challenges online. There are also representatives of teachers here today. I want to thank the AFT and other organizations for being here and sharing the perspective of educators who face challenges in classrooms because of online platforms and social media. I want to thank the elected officials who are also here today for bravely standing up to the big tech lobby, for fighting for the legislation we deserve. And I'm excited we'll be here joined by a few of them as well today. So we're a diverse group. We're all affected by big tech and their failures to protect kids online. And I hope today you'll leave this rally reinvigorated and continue to be united in the fight for the digital world we all deserve. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker who has to run because he has a flight to catch. I'm really pleased and honored to be here joined by the New Mexico Attorney General, Raul Torres, who's been a champion in this fight, most recently filed a lawsuit against Meta for their failure to protect kids online. And I'm really excited to hear what he has to say. So I'll toss it over to him.
Well, first, I just want to say how honored I am to be joined by courageous young people who want a better future, a safer future, and deserve to have access to a digital world that they can trust. And sadly, that isn't the reality right now. One of the first things that we did in the Attorney General's office in New Mexico is building on some of the work that I had done as a frontline internet crimes prosecutor and a child abuse prosecutor, is to really try and uncover just how dangerous and how pervasive child sexual abuse material and pedophiles and predators were on these platforms. And, there was yet, I guess, another command performance by these CEOs who have sought yet again to reassure policymakers and parents. But what I can tell you, and what sadly the family members who have lost someone here can tell you, is that they aren't living up to these promises. And we are in a position, hopefully now, to demand real accountability from them. My hope is that by bringing the lawsuit that we filed, we can start to raise awareness with parents, with policymakers and others about the dangers of these spaces, but really create a sense of urgency around what we all believe is unacceptable. It is simply unacceptable that children are placed in this kind of danger. And we are going to fight with everything we have to pass meaningful legislation to continue to hold these executives accountable. And, I was asked earlier today what I thought Mr. Zuckerberg needed to do. And my answer was simply this: he needs to start acting like a parent. He has kids himself. He needs to start acting like that when he builds these platforms, when he makes these decisions. He needs to think about what it would be like to have his son or daughter exposed to this. He needs to think about what it would be like to live through the pain and heartbreak that these parents have had to endure. he needs to really take a step back and evaluate his priorities and start helping us build a better future and stop fighting real change. And so my commitment is to do everything we can to support this effort. And I also want to take a moment to recognize the people who've shown real grit and determination and strength, the whistleblowers inside of these companies who have come forward and demonstrated that they have raised red flags over and over again and have been ignored. And it takes an immense amount of courage to do what they have done. And so it's a privilege to stand with them and to be here with all of you. Today, I think, was an important turning point, but we can't give up the fight, and we're in it for the long haul. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Attorney General, for being here with us today, and thank you for those great words. It's my pleasure to now introduce a youth activist, a young leader in this country who has really made a name for himself and helped, I think, bring attention to the challenges young people are facing across the country and the world when it comes to social media and online platforms. Zaman Qureshi, a student at American University and the co-chair of the Design It For Us Coalition.
Thank you all for being here today. My name is Zaman Qureshi. I co-chair the Design It For Us Coalition, a coalition of youth activists driving policy to protect kids and teens online. I'm joined by dozens of activists here today, and I'm speaking on behalf of thousands of young people across the country and around the world who have come to express our condemnation of big tech's harm-for-profit business model. Today's testimony by these CEOs underscored that these companies cannot be trusted to act in good faith. My fellow activists and I chose to attend this hearing because of the significance it holds and will hold for my generation. Decades from now, my children will read about this moment in their history books, where a coalition of young people became a movement to take back control of our lives from social media companies. We listened in earnest as CEOs had the opportunity to convey ways they are investing to protect us online. Unsurprisingly, we have heard more of the same. More of the same toothless commitments, empty promises, and band-aid measures. And we shouldn't be surprised. In the weeks leading up to this hearing, Meta, Snap, and X announced quote-unquote new policies that were simply meant to appease lawmakers, not actually make us safer. Why is it that these companies only act when there is public or political pressure to do so? Why can they not act on their own volition and invest concretely in actual safeguards we know will help? How many more of my friends have to be harmed, abused, extorted, or taken advantage of, killed, or forced into taking their own life until these companies decide to act? We are asking these companies for very little, to put their money where their mouth is and commit to protecting my generation. But that doesn't seem to be possible for them. Today, my peers and I wore t-shirts showing Mark Zuckerberg we are worth more than $270. And he had the opportunity to look behind us and see us there. Thanks to the lawsuits filed by the likes of Attorney General Torres, we now know that's simply how Meta thinks of you and me, as young products that ought to be exploited and squeezed out of every dollar value we have to offer. But enough is enough. The reason I'm standing in front of you all here today and not sitting in my senior class right now up the street is because a year ago we decided enough is enough and brought these incredible, powerful voices together to demand change. I can confidently say that we have done that and we will continue to. There is a growing, powerful movement of young people demanding a better online future. That's the voice we are harnessing. It's the voice that we believe deserves to be centered wherever you go when you speak to lawmakers and people in power about this issue. And our activism is clearly working. It's why we are standing here not as a group of scrappy teenagers that we were a few years back, but as an organized movement that has produced forward momentum. And the tide is turning. Just this week, Snap and Microsoft announced their support for the Kids Online Safety Act, a bipartisan piece of legislation that Design It For Us has advocated for and will continue to advocate for. So what's next? First, big tech CEOs will fly back to Silicon Valley, and we hope that they take a good, long, hard look in the mirror. Mark Zuckerberg, can you confidently say you are doing everything to protect us young people, and parents are showing up just to sit in congressional hearings? Second, Congress needs to act. COSA and COPPA 2.0 offer real bipartisan solutions that deserve to cross the finish line this year. Leader Schumer holds all the power to deliver the vote we so desperately need. Let's get it done. Finally, the young people here. We are only getting started. This is not the last time you will hear from us. We will continue to come back here in larger and larger numbers. This is a movement, and you best believe we will not stop until we got what we came for. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zaman. And to keep the momentum going, we'll hear from another incredible youth activist, someone who's been at the helm as well of helping elevate the stories and experiences of young people facing challenges online and with social media. It's my pleasure to introduce Ava Smithing, who is the Director of Advocacy and Operations at the Young People's Alliance.
Hey y'all, thank you for being here today and supporting us. We're very grateful for all of you, especially those of you today who are here advocating on behalf of your child who could not. You breathe life into this movement, and we are very, very grateful and inspired by you. I was one of those teenage girls on Instagram with an eating disorder that you read about on your LinkedIn feed or heard about in that one movie, and I'm here today because it was all true. Because I did compare myself to the girls that were forced onto my feed. I'll always know how many calories are in a handful of almonds thanks to the post that taught me. And because there's always a part of me that'll wonder whether or not the number on that scale is too high. But I'm also here today to tip the scales back into balance. I want to posit two different forms of freedom. The first is the freedom we typically think about, freedom from others. It's our freedom from foreign control and the freedom from outside methods of coercion. But there's a second sense of freedom that is related, but altogether more important than the first. The freedom from ourselves. This is the addict's freedom from addiction, the mentally ill's freedom from the tyranny of one's mind, a child's freedom to self-determine. This is my own freedom from the compulsive desire to starve myself for digital social attention. The great social commentator George Orwell gave life to this concept in 1984. When O'Brien was attempting to break Winston in the Ministry of Love, he revealed the paradigm of Big Brother's control was not to coerce, but to control from within. O'Brien says, "When finally you surrender to us, it must be of your own free will. We do not destroy the heretic because he resists us. So long as he resists us, we will never destroy him. We convert him. We capture his inner mind. We reshape him." Is this capturing of the inner mind not the same goal of social media companies who subconsciously manipulate users into engaging with their services? Is this reshaping not the same novel behavioral outcomes of excessive and addictive use patterns, eating disorders, and suicide that we see so commonly in our youth? And beyond freedom and dignity, B.F. Skinner postulates a state that leverages the weaknesses of human psychology to behaviorally condition its citizens. But what if it's not a state that is exploiting behavioral vulnerabilities, but a company? And what if it's not a state's citizens who are affected, but instead millions of young people who haven't yet developed the methods of personal resistance to overcome the compromised nature of their own psychology? What you get is billion-dollar corporations like Meta, defining the value of my life at $270 and doing whatever they can to suck that $270 from me in the short time I have on this earth. An amount of time that seems to grow shorter every day as another fear-mongering post about climate change, the end of democracy, or God forbid a nuclear war crosses my feed. I'm 22 years old, and I can only kind of handle this. Imagine being 14 and reading that 2024 will be the last democratic election. You have never even voted. What options do you have available to you? What solutions come to mind? It is easier in this moment, because these companies have weaponized your personal data against you, to scroll, to swipe, to passively consume this content as it reshapes you. It is easier to watch your terrifying future through a phone screen than to fruitlessly advocate for the resolution of that terror in a gridlocked Congress. A Congress compromised by politicians more loyal to Meta and their millions of dollars in campaign donations than to you and your freedom from their control. It's a transaction, re-election for a bottom line, and us young people are misrepresented as apathetic? In a world where everyone seems to care more about this transaction than you, it's not apathy, it's paralysis. It's not It's not carelessness, it's hopelessness. And it's not a misunderstanding of politics, but it's the knowledge that these politicians have very clearly left us behind. Us young people have so much desire to create change, but we're stuck behind our phone screens, addicted, overstimulated, losing sleep, losing weight, losing friends. We need an olive branch, a hand extended to us by the politicians that we feel have left us behind, not only to heal our mental health, but to handicap the products that are harming it. When we make social media less addictive, safer, conducive to actual collaboration and connection, we will empower collective action in the strongest, most resilient, well-informed, and well-connected generation yet. We want to be the change that we wish to see in the world, that we need to see in the world. We just need to be given the chance. But if this chance is not given, it will be taken, because the cycle of hopelessness and fear as perpetuated by social media is not sustainable. And there is not a force more relentless than the raw instinct of hope that will follow when the fear runs out. Congress needs to act, together and now, to pass comprehensive legislation to protect our mental health from the commercialized design of social media, as America can no longer tolerate companies sacrificing our collective future at the altar of profits and social control. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ava. It's my pleasure to now introduce another incredible youth activist who's been leading the charge as well in elevating the stories and experiences of young people affected by online platforms and social media. Ariel Geismer is a content creator, digital wellness advocate, and leader in student organizing. She's coming to us today from GW University, and she's a core team member of the Design It For Us coalition.
My name is Ariel Geismar. I'm an organizer and an advocate with Design It For Us. I'm here today because my life, my happiness, my safety, and my well-being have been commodified and capitalized. In the eyes of these tech CEOs, I am a number. I am a dollar sign. I am $270 worth of a product of a human being. Today, we heard from tech CEOs trying to defend their unexcusable actions. We saw right through. None of these CEOs that you heard from today are surprised at the impact of their technology. They do not allow their children to use these apps. America's young people are big tech's guinea pigs. Their inaction around child sexual exploitation material, or CSEM, is abhorrent, demoralizing, and disgusting. I am nauseated to have sat there today and listened to CEOs posture while they ruin the lives of young people. The pieces of technology they built are horrors beyond comprehension. Over the past week, global superstar Taylor Swift was the latest victim of AI deepfakes and the circulation of explicit materials. Someone as powerful, as meaningful as her was harmed by this, and platforms didn't take it down for hours. For those of us who aren't phenomenal superstars, that material can stay on the internet forever, for our entire life. Kids, children's lives are being torn before they can even start because of the pure negligence of these platforms. Tech CEOs know this is happening, and they just don't care. There's a lot of talk today about being 13-year-old and up, that these platforms are only made for individuals 13 and up. Do you know what you have to do to prove that you're 13 and up? You click a button, and that's it. So I don't want to hear about 13 and up. Well, our product was only made for 13-year-olds when it is easy for an 11-year-old like me to be on social media when I was 11 years old. Parents are here, families are in shambles, and kids are in danger. If kids were in a public playground being exposed to sexual abuse, we would change everything. If they were in a public playground with sexual predators, drugs, and exposure to CSEM, every single person would want change. Every single person would call their representative and demand that playground be taken down. Every single individual who lived in that city, who cared about young people, who cared about children, would be making calls. But because it's behind a screen, and because money talks, here we are. As a young girl of the ages of 11 and 12, I was subjected to content on Instagram that told me to engage in disordered habits. Come to learn over the past year, Meta knew that they were encouraging young women and girls to engage in disordered eating habits. Meta knew. We were forced to play a dopamine slot machine at the expense of our life. If young children were playing in an active area, in a physical area that was this unsafe, we would take it down. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ariel. I'm now honored to introduce Senator Ed Markey. He's a champion when it comes to protecting kids online. He's going to share more about this fight, and really excited to have him here today with us.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to Accountable Tech and Design It For Us for convening us after today's historic Senate Judiciary Committee hearing. And I'm also very grateful to many of the young people and parents who are here today standing up against our big tech CEOs, and they are demanding change in our country. After years of inaction and refusing to confront the problems of big tech, which they created, their CEO showed up today with even more excuses. It was outrageous what happened. For far too long, major social media platforms have deliberately and repeatedly violated the privacy of young people working to keep their eyes glued to the screens. Study after study has shown that big tech's pernicious practices are continuing and contributing to this crisis. Big tech is knowingly fueling a mental health crisis in our country. Here are the statistics. 2 years ago, 1 in 3 teenage girls contemplated suicide in the United States of America. 2 years ago, 1 in 10 teenage girls attempted suicide in the United States. 2 years ago, 1 in 5 LGBTQ youth attempted suicide in the United States, and the Surgeon General of the United States has implicated social media as one of the principal causes of this mental health crisis for teenagers and children in our nation. And it is absolutely essential that we pass legislation that gives the protections to the parents of our country which they need in order to protect kids. In 2018, an internal Meta report estimated that 4 million kids under 13 used Instagram, representing 30% of all kids aged 10 to 12 years old in the United States. Another Meta document acknowledged they do very little to keep kids under 13 off their platform. Facebook, Instagram produced numerous research reports that estimated different statistics that clearly indicate the company's knowledge of use of their platforms by children under the age of 13. Why is this important to me? Because in 1998, I was the author of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. I wanted it to be up to age 17, but big tech said no, but at least I got children under the age of 13 covered by the Child Online Privacy Protection Act. That's where you see these companies sued and sued successfully for their abuse of this information. But it's not enough. We need to raise the age up to 17. We have to say to parents, you have a right to say no. stop collecting data about my children. Stop targeting my children with ads that I don't want them to see, and give me an eraser button that allows me to erase all information you've gathered about my teenager, about my child. Give me the knowledge that you're gathering information about my child. Notice that you're using it for other purposes other than that which the parents had intended, and the right to say, no, stop it. So we have to pass this bill. It is absolutely urgent that we have a privacy bill of rights for every teenager and child in our country. We have a right to say, stop gathering information, stop targeting children and teenagers, and allow for an erasure of any information. So otherwise, it's just going to be the same old story over and over again. And the big companies are going to say, do you know how difficult this is? You have no idea. Well, they can create an algorithm that goes from here to Osaka and back in a quarter of a second. But if you say, oh, could you please protect teenagers and children? You don't know how complicated that is. Well, for parents in our country, they know how simple it is to once and for all say, stop the excuses. We want solutions, and we need legislation passed now that empowers parents and teenagers and children to be protected against this onslaught of mental health crisis inducing information going into the minds of young people in our society. So that's where we are. This historic hearing has put all the CEOs right on the front page. But an apology by Mark Zuckerberg is not enough. We need action. We need laws. We need protections that are put on the books. So we're fed up with apologies. We now need action, and we have to take on big tech with or without their cooperation, because the mental health of young people in our country is at stake. Thank you all so much for everything that you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Markey. On the note of COSA, I am really excited today to also have the pleasure to introduce two senators who have been champions in the fight to protect kids online. Before I actually introduce them, though, I do want to make space up here behind me. If any of the parents want to come up here, or other activists, you're more than welcome. We can all spread out. It is cold here, so feel free, if you want to come and join us behind the podium, you're more than welcome. But without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce two senators, Senator Blackburn and Senator Blumenthal, who will be coming up here together, I believe, to share their remarks about why this fight is so important. Thank you so much.
Well, good afternoon. We are just so thrilled that you all are here and that you've been here today to participate in the hearing. So we thank you for that. We thank you for your advocacy. It means more than you could possibly know. But as you heard at the hearing today, it is time for us to make certain that big tech stops looking at our children as the product. And it is time that we put in place provisions that are going to protect our children online. And it is time for big tech to stop funding armies of lawyers and lobbyists who push back against federal regulation in the virtual space. So we thank you so much for your work. We do think that this is going to help us get COSA across the finish line, because you all are such effective advocates, and to make certain that our colleagues here in the Senate, those in the House, realize that the Kids Online Safety Act would give parents and kids the tools that they need to protect themselves in the virtual space. It would put a duty of care on these social media platforms require them to design for safety. It would make certain that every year they're going to submit to an independent audit to make certain that they are abiding by the letter of the law. And it would require them to have a portal so that parents and kids could report bad actors and adverse activity, and then it would require those platforms to do something about it. I love the t-shirts that were there today that said, "I'm worth more than $270. Indeed, that is very true, because Meta has assigned that value to each teen that is on their site. And indeed, it is insulting to all of these parents and all of these friends that have lost precious loved ones to hear that statement from someone who is the CEO of one of the biggest companies in this country. So thank you for your advocacy.
Thank you. Great job. I want to say thank you as well. You know, the nation's capital is filled with words, with marble, with buildings that are majestic and inspiring. And the words often echo off them without any real effect. But sometimes, just once in a while, there are words that count and people who count. And today we saw it. Not so much in the words, but in the people, in you, in the voices and faces that you have brought to Washington, in the acts of courage that you've demonstrated by coming here, by your physical presence here. Your voices and faces, your physical presence, and maybe most important, your photographs of loved ones who have been lost. Nothing can match the eloquence and power of those profoundly human statements about loss and pain and grief and harm. And all those words that you heard from the CEOs, how much they care, how much they have done, how much they're going to do, you know how hollow they are. You know how empty they will be. But I can guarantee you, we will win this fight for the Kids Online Safety Act. We will win this battle because of you. Because you are inspiring my colleagues, as you did us from the very first moment that I met many of you. And I am profoundly grateful for your courage, your persistence, your perseverance. Courage is grace under pressure. Your grace and dignity and the power of your turning your pain into something positive, I think, inspires us always. So I am here to say thank you. Thank you for being with us today. And it's not the end. It's not the beginning. I hope it is the beginning of the end. The beginning of the end of this fight, and we will win it with your help and your support. Bless you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Senators, for being here. Really can't express enough how grateful we are for Senator Blackburn and Senator Blumenthal for their leadership in this issue area. And let's hope this is the end of the end, and that together we can pass legislation to finally protect kids online. It's my pleasure now to introduce a former employee of Meta, someone we've all heard and seen recently in the press when he courageously came before the Senate to testify about the company's failure to protect kids online and the fact that his own personal pleas to executives within the company were ignored and problematically not addressed by the company. So it's my pleasure to introduce Arturo Bejar, who's going to speak more to his experience here with us today. Thank you.
What is the most important voice when it comes to all of these issues? It's the voice of a parent who has lost a child. It's the voice of a teen who has experienced unwanted advances, self-harm content, things that plant seeds about body image or comparison. Those are the single most important voices in all of this work. I used to work for this company. I used to be the person responsible for all of these areas for the company for many years. And if I can share one thing today, is to know a few things. First and foremost, these deaths are preventable. They have the technology to do it. They have the means to do it. They have the infrastructure. They just don't have the will or the prioritization to dedicate the people that you need in order to make these things better. We saw that so clearly in the emails that Senator Blumenthal's office released this morning. It is very straightforward and not difficult for them to reduce the amount of harmful content that teens get exposed to. It is not difficult for them to provide tools to say, hey, I just got something that harassed me, made me uncomfortable. It doesn't matter what the content is, it matters what my experience is. And so after I left, and I saw my own daughter experiencing these things firsthand, right? She experienced unwanted advances, harassment, so many things. She tried to use the tools every single time, and I asked her, did you ever get any help? And she said, not once. I went back in to see if we could make it better, and Mark Zuckerberg has created a company that crushes the spirits of the people who want to make this better, because their ideas get crushed, because the things that they want to do, the people in these teams that have many wonderful thoughts about things that could make this better, they can't get that work to get prioritized, they cannot get that work to be resourced because of decisions that he makes. And he dares to stand today and say, our job is to make the best tools that we can, when that is not what they do. That was a lie. We don't allow under 13-year-olds on Instagram. Search for hashtag 10th birthday. That is a lie. Try to report one of these accounts. But what we should expect from them, and what should have happened by now, is that Mark and every CEO should have sat down with every parent and every teen here and say, tell me what you experienced. Let me understand so that I can make it better. I have a responsibility to make it better, because that should be the job. The job, if you're connecting people, is you have to take care of them and protect them as well. And you can only do so by understanding the harm that people experience. And so then the work was to give that harm voice. And in the face of staggering statistics of harm that teens are experiencing, they still choose to not act. And so here we are today, with all of the respect in the world for every parent that has lost a child, for all the respect in the world for every youth that is speaking up about these things. That work is so essential and necessary, because the most important thing that needs to happen is these companies need to listen, and they need to be made. Why are we here saying, please don't kill our children, right? This shouldn't be necessary, but it is. So thank you for being here today. Thank you to all of you for being here. This is what the work is about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arturo, for being here with us today. We're now going to hear from representatives of some organizations that have been really critical in this fight. And then we're going to turn it over and conclude by hearing from some of the parents behind me who are going to share their own experience. I'd like to now introduce Martha Perez Pedemonte, She's a civil justice and consumer rights lawyer with Public Citizen.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Martha Perez Peramonte. I represent Public Citizen. Public Citizen is a nonprofit consumer advocacy organization that champions the public interest in the halls of power. We have 500,000 members and supporters throughout the country. In a rapidly evolving landscape of our now online world, young people are facing unprecedented challenges that demand immediate attention. The failure of the tech industry to protect our youth from the real and pervasive harms of social media platforms is a grave concern that must be dealt with expeditiously, as we have heard today. Social media was designed to connect people, but it is now becoming a breeding ground for the cyberbullying, misinformation, exploitation, abuse, among other harms that we are hearing about. Our children, the digital natives of this era, are navigating a world where the lines between virtual and real life are increasingly blurred, and it is horrifying to witness the damaging impact these platforms are having on their mental health, self-esteem, and overall well-being. Our children deserve better. The responsibility to address this issue lies with the very companies that have created these platforms. Regrettably, there has been a failure to implement robust measures to safeguard young users from the potential harms that lurk in the digital realm. The tech industries must prioritize the well-being of our youth over profit margins. The status quo is unattainable, and we cannot afford to let one more generation bear the brunt of this negligence. We call upon lawmakers and social media companies to take decisive action and pass meaningful legislation. We need comprehensive regulations that hold bad actors accountable for cyberbullying, stalking, online harassment, and other real harms, and at the same time allow for comprehensive protections to stand, existing protections to stand. Parents must be allowed to hold big tech accountable. Our children deserve to grow up in a digital world that fosters positive interactions, creativity, and learning. It is time for the tech industry to take responsibility for its role in shaping the day-to-day lives of our youth and take action to address risks associated with social media. The well-being of our youngest and most vulnerable citizens must be protected. Personally, as a mother, nothing else matters. Thank you especially to the young activists here today and to the families who are speaking on behalf of their loved ones. Thank you.
Testing. I think it's best if we just don't touch the mic, and maybe that'll help. But thank you so much, Martha, for those words. It's now my pleasure to introduce Main Ahmed, who is a tech accountability campaigner with Echo, another incredible organization helping to hold big tech accountable.
Hello, everyone. My name is Man Hamed, a campaigner with corporate accountability group Echo, a people-powered campaign organization with 22 million members around the world, taking action to hold corporations accountable and push for a better world. Today, as we gather, we stand united against big tech's worst harms. These corporate giants, draped in the cloak of innovation, have become nothing more than purveyors of exploitation, especially when it comes to children and young people on the internet. We've seen the evidence firsthand. The proliferation of harmful content on platforms pushing self-harm, suicide, sexual abuse, and eating disorders runs rampant, where harmful ideologies pushing violent misogyny or election denialism are welcomed with open arms. What was meant to be spaces of creativity have been morphed into digital minefields, where young people are forced to navigate through a landscape of toxicity and despair. But let me be clear, this is not by accident. This is the result of a calculated and predatory business model designed to maximize profits at the expense of our youth. personalized ads targeted at minors, algorithms designed to keep them hooked for hours on end, all while their mental health deteriorates before our very eyes. And what do these multi-billion dollar empires offer in return? Empty promises and superficial gestures. They speak of their commitment to safety and well-being, yet their actions tell a different story. They continue to prioritize profit over people, turning a blind eye to the harm inflicted upon kids and teenagers. But we refuse to be silent accomplices to this injustice. We refuse to allow young people to be treated as commodities in their profit-driven machine. We demand accountability, and we demand it now. We must not forget that this predatory approach is not inevitable or impossible to regulate. We work across the globe, and we see firsthand how lawmakers are taking definitive action to protect their citizens from the big tech Wild West. Now we need political leaders in the U.S. to step up and pass laws that create a safer, better internet for everybody. We can't afford to jeopardize future generations. We urge Congress to listen to the public's concern next to the wealth of evidence documenting online harms. To take courage and act. It has been too late for too long. Thank you.
Thank you, Mon, for those words. I know it's cold, but we're coming down to the end of our program, and it's really my humble honor and privilege to introduce our next speakers. They're incredibly courageous to be here. I think it can't go without saying that their activism is an incredible inspiration for all of us. And so much of the work we do is really in service of them and in honor of their children who they have tragically lost to the harms of social media platforms. I'm first going to introduce Joanne Bogard, who is the co-founder and co-chair of the Online Harms Prevention Work Group at Screen Time Action Network at Fair Play. She's also a state representative of Media Literacy Now, and I hope everyone can just give her the time and space to share her story and experience and understand why it's so urgent that we see action today from Congress.
May 1st, 2019 started as a normal day for our family with work, school, dinner, hugs, and I love yous. But that evening, our 15-year-old son, Mason, tried the choking challenge that ultimately would take his young life. We soon learned that the choking challenge is a popular trend circulating on many social media platforms like TikTok and YouTube. It is recommended, viewed, and tried by children, resulting in fatal accidents. For almost 5 years, I have been searching, easily finding, and reporting dozens of choking challenge videos every week, and yet the platforms rarely remove them. Since Mason's death, 95 more children have died from the choking challenge. We waited until middle school to give our kids phones, and I was the parent who had all of the recommended features turned on for safety. I had watchdog apps in place, checked their devices regularly, and I had the hard conversations about online safety. But that wasn't enough to protect my son from being fed harmful content. Just like I did, many parents continue to think that these harms that we're talking about today won't affect their families. Mason was a smart, kind, curly-haired, normal teen living a healthy lifestyle. These harms are happening overnight to our average kids. No other American industry goes unregulated, and the tech industry should not be an exception. They currently have no incentive to apply the safety features necessary to protect young lives. They are untouchable, and they know it. Today marks the 10th congressional hearing for child online safety and teen mental health in less than 3 years. We have the data. We have the testimonies. Now is the time for our legislators to pass the Kids Online Safety Act. COSA will ensure that children are provided the protections that they deserve online. Unchecked, these companies will continue to purposefully design their products to feed unsolicited, harmful content to young users, all in the name of profit. We refuse to allow these platforms to continue taking advantage of our children through challenges, sexual exploitation, or the many other harms readily found on their platforms. Congress, the ball is in your court. There is so much inspiring energy here today, and I thank you for coming together as one united voice to demand that Congress take action. We need every senator who called out the CEOs today to vote for the Kids Online Safety Act. No more hearings. No more lost lives. I would like to introduce to you a friend of mine and a tireless advocate for kids' online safety, Kristen Bride.
Thank you, Joanne. Last year, I too testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee. However, I was not asked to answer for my company's gross negligence like the 5 CEOs did today. I was at the hearing to tell the story of my 16-year-old son, Carson, who we lost to suicide in June 2020. What we didn't know is behind Carson's amazing smile was a teen who was hiding a terrible secret, a secret that made him feel helpless, hopeless, and humiliated. For weeks, Carson had been cyberbullied over YOLO, an anonymous app that was integrated into Snapchat's platform. Carson received over 100 harassing and sexually explicit messages from his high school peers who were hiding their identities to torment him. We waited until Carson was in 8th grade for his first phone and in 9th grade for Snapchat with private account settings. Yet this horrific tragedy still happened to our family, and we will never be the same again. Anonymous apps, when marketed to teens, have a long history of leading to cyberbullying and suicides. When I learned that Carson had been cyberbullied over YOLO, I reached out to them and asked them to follow their own stated policies, that they would monitor for cyberbullying, reveal the names of those who do so, and ban them from the app. You know what? I know you can probably guess. I was ignored all 4 times. It was here that I had an important decision to make. Do I accept this, or do I begin to fight back? And I decided to fight back like so many of the other parents here standing behind me. Please hold up the signs of your beautiful children who have also been lost to social media harms. We so appreciate you, and we so appreciate your advocacy. Please, a round of applause for them. After filing a national class action lawsuit, Snapchat changed their policies to prohibit anonymous apps because, in their own words, they could not mitigate the risks at an acceptable level. We demand that risk assessments to prevent harms happen before these products reach our children. Parents have had enough. Enough of the broken promises, enough of the hearings, enough of the unaccountable social media companies harming and killing our children in their quest for more profit. It's time for Congress to finally stand up to these tech giants. We need to pass the Kids Online Safety Act, COSA, now. This bill will finally require social media companies to have a duty of care to our children when they are designing their products. COSA passed unanimously out of the Senate Commerce Committee and has 49 bipartisan co-sponsors, a rarity in DC these days. This is a rally, everyone. This is the first rally that I've spoken at, and I need your help, I need your energy, and I need your voices. On the count of 3, I need you to shout "Pass COSA now" so that Senator Schumer can hear us, all the children who are currently suffering can hear us, and those we have lost can hear us. Is everyone ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Pass COSA now. One more time. Pass COSA now. Pass COSA now. Thank COSA now. Keep it going. I'll turn it over to Zach. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen. And thank you, Joanne. I loved how we were able to end it there on a chant. And I think it's really important that we all leave here with a clear call to action that Congress needs to act now. We need to see no more hearings, but we need to see laws. We need to see the change we all deserve, really, to have a safer online world for young people. So I want to thank all our incredible speakers for coming here today, all of our attendees for being here in the cold, and I want to thank our partner organizations that have been really helpful in making this event happen. The youth-led coalition Design It For Us, the Tech Oversight Project, Fair Play, Parents Together Action, Public Citizen, ECHO, the Young People's Alliance, and Parents SOS. Together we're all unified in this fight, and I hope we all leave here today reaffirmed that this fight is not over, but it's coming close to an end, so that we ultimately secure the legislation we're fighting for. So thank you all for coming, and thank you to all our incredible speakers for being here with us.